We're here tonight to celebrate the launch of our latest issue, I number 101. The cover of I-101, unusually for us, shows several articles from the issue, including work by all the four guests you're going to hear from later in this evening. We're going to welcome Jim Sutherland, who's a little start right editor. You can see here, it's going to be Anette Lenz, whose work for Lafar is also there. Mario Eskenazi, you can see his big Barcelona cleaning truck identity. And we're also going to welcome Elizabeth Resnick, who wrote a fabulous piece about Jacqueline Casey, and is also going to talk about Thérèse Moll, the designer who had such a powerful impact on the design at MIT, where Jacqueline Casey worked for most of her career. And so each of the speakers is going to present their work, including things that we didn't have space for in I-101, or in fact, they've actually done,
or things we just didn't decide to put in 101.
Or things they've done since we actually published I-101, because they're all incredibly prolific designers.
So these are some spreads from the issue. John and I are sitting here as kind of slightly unsatisfactory newsreaders to avoid funny feedback issues.
Well, that's a bit of a first, actually, Simon. So we've always been
sitting side by side,
separate Zoom spaces.
Yeah,
and so we're getting a little bit back to the old type Tuesday with people in a room together, and but not that far, because our guests are in Barcelona, Geneva,
London,
and Holly, our art editor, is in Bristol, and America, of course, Elizabeth. This is a piece we're not going to talk about tonight, but we hope you'll enjoy when you, if you already have your copy of I-101, we're about to buy it. It's a piece by Paul Kahn about the data visualization that resulted from the pandemic that's affected us all so much and changed our lives over the last 15 months or so. This is the opening spread to Simon's piece about Studio Sutherland and Jim Sutherland, who we'll hear from very soon. The opening spread to Jan Middendorp's profile of Anette Lenz, and the opening spread to Science and Design, Elizabeth's piece about Jacqueline Casey. But we thought it'd be nice if Simon could maybe say a little bit about the type, because as some of you know, we changed the type we use in I with every issue since number 72. And for this, Simon's made some very interesting and some sort of radical choices.
Well, I don't know if they're that radical, really. Actually, Holly and I started the hunt for a text typeface, and Holly came up with Blanco by David Foster, a Foster type. David is based in Sydney, and most of his work is actually either with other type designers or custom typography. But this is a retail text face in 4 different weights. So we see here the regular and the extra bold, and it's accompanying italics. And there's so much discussion about type design these days, but there's very little actual discussion about text typeface design. I think by comparison with the amount of discussion about display type. And we both, Holly and I both thought that Blanco was kind of refreshingly modern and also quite bold on the page. I mean, there's a tendency to make text type that's very light. So early on, we chose Blanco and started work on that. And then, John, if you, my assistant, the next choice, well, it's not actually, for those of us who know Holly and I, where we have a kind of passion for condensed typeface. I mean, basically the bolder and the more condensed it is, the more chance it's going to appear as a headline face in I. And
this for long words as well.
Fantastic for long words, yes. So this is the headline face in the issue. Manuka sands here on the left, designed by Chris Sowersby. Chris is based in New Zealand, and is a, we like to think, an old friend of I.
Oh, we featured him in
we've profiled
years
him.
ago.
And Manuka is a collection, so as well as this sands and a slightly more condensed version, there's also a slab version, which you see here on the right. And the fascinating thing was we chose these kind of different times. And then actually, once you research it, you realize that not only has Dave Foster worked with a commercial type making Ma, which I think is my favorite kind of 19th century revival at the moment, but he's also worked with Chris Sowersby. So there's a strange, once again, there's that strange eye effect where it turns out everything's interconnected, even if we didn't know that when we started it.
Thank you very much, Simon. Yes, the eye effect is something that always fascinates me. We do these themed issues every now and again. We did one about food design a while ago. Right now, we're working on the next type special issue, which will I-102, which will be out in September. And this is decidedly, I-101 is decidedly a non-special issue or not non-specialist issue, but in fact, there's all sorts of things that link the different articles and participants in it, and that's something we'll explore as we hear from all our guests this evening. If you have a question for Simon or for me or for Mario, Annette, Elizabeth or Jim, please put them in the Q&A box. We won't answer them while we're doing the presentations, but at the end of the evening we'll have a sort of panel chat where we'll discuss various things we all have in common, and also your questions, and maybe address things that have absolutely nothing to do with this issue whatsoever. But we do hope you enjoy this issue of iMagazine, and I'll now, well, I think it's time to introduce first.
Yeah, so first off, we're going to talk to Jim Sutherland. So I've written a short piece about Jim in the issue, and we're looking at sort of 10 of his projects, and we've wanted to feature Jim in the magazine for a long time. There's a wonderful combination of kind of thinking, but also making, and there's no overwhelming style, I think, but there is a kind of Jim approach to things. Jim, are you there? Hi. Is your microphone on?
Yes, it's on. Yes, I just haven't.
And you're in your famous standing up position.
I am standing up just to keep me awake. So.
Yeah. Well, I think
please show your screen.
It's time to go, Jim.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to put my timer on for 10 minutes because I promised.
Yeah.
65 slides in 10.
Well, apparently it's going to be an Olympic sport in Japan. Did you know?
Well, I think we're going for a few records tonight, actually.
So I'm just going to share my screen because I better get going pretty quickly. No, thank you for that, Simon. And just to mention, well, just to say, I'm completely honoured to be in I. It's the best design magazine in the world, I think. So just to have anything in it, I think is amazing. And so, so thank you for that. So as John mentioned, I had a quick chat with him last week about what was happening tonight and the other speakers and things. And there seemed to be a sort of semi-theme about big projects and small companies, and so I sort of did that as a bit of a theme for this talk to go through a few of the projects. So it's a bit about big and small, and it's a bit about work and play. And so just for anybody, I run a very small studio in London, myself and one designer, Rosie Trickett, called Studio Sutherland. I work in this space, which I moved into about 2 years ago now. I made a model before we moved in to sort of plan the space. So this is Rosie and myself are the two Greek soldiers, and the animals are my wife and my two daughters, which are going to be unnamed in this at the moment. So that was the model I made, just to try and get a sense of the space. It's a really lovely space. It's much too big really for just two people, but it's been a lovely space to be, particularly over lockdown, and I've been lucky enough to come in pretty much every day. So lots of books, again, really inspiring. You'll see in the projects, it's a range of identity projects and book projects and self-initiated things. So a real mixture. And this is where I'm standing now. It's got a bit messier than when we first moved in, but very much working, you know, tactilely about putting stuff on the wall and chatting about it. And that's the bit I've probably missed most over the last sort of year or so. So what I wanted to do was just alternate between a few big projects and a few small ones, and just to really touch on them, not go into too much detail. But this was a project that we did probably about 3 years ago, maybe, for Start Right Shoes, which is an amazing children's shoe brand that's been around for sort of about 200 years now, I think. And they had this very old-fashioned symbol of these two twins that had been mucked about with over time, and they came to us and said, you know, we'd like you to do this identity project, and what should we keep, what should we throw away? So the first thing we did, working with Becky, who's my wife, who's an illustrator we use a lot, we just simplified the twins to use as part of the identity, which is what features on the front of the magazine. But the other thing we did is look at the typography and notice we've got these two R's, which are almost like twins, and added these little serifs to them to give them a bit of character and a certain amount of playfulness. And that led us to then designing the whole typeface using these serifs. And I suppose this for me does sum up pretty much the approach to a lot of work, whether it's big or small, of a certain amount of playfulness and a certain amount of joy, you know, in the right places. And what I loved about this is that it's a sort of serious project, but you could have so much fun with just adding these serifs to certain characters. And just that slight obsessiveness of just doing everything, all the dashes and the punctuation, and, you know, just to give each character lots of character, really. And, you know, we could make little animations and just have fun with it, really, even though it's actually a, you know, 200-year-old, very well-known English, you know, children's shoe brand. So a lot of fun to do. And I think, I suppose, as I say, sort of sums up sort of approach to lots of these projects in some ways. And I just want to add this, because this is one of my favorite numbers. So you can only buy shoes in size 4 because they have this, it just has this, I can't quite believe how, this amazing character just by adding these two serifs to it. So this was a little thing we produced. It's called Type Feet as a typeface. And then obviously I've got a certain obsession about ampersands. There's a few of those in here tonight. We made some foam letters for the launch, and this is one of them on the sofa at home. And again, I just love the fact it's got so much character to it. So it's slightly scary when you sit next to it, it's worth saying. At the other end of the scale, and this is a project we've only just finished in the studio for a company called Boss Box, who we do a lot of work for, or a lot of work with, actually. And they came to Becky and I and said about designing a pencil box. So Beck and I talked about this a lot, and we came up with this idea of drawing these characters on this box of pencils, but they were all made out of the same modular elements of pencil shapes, whether it's the triangle of the lead or the shavings or the hexagon or the dot of the lead from the top. But they're all made out of these different components. And again, trying to give them a bit of character. And you can obviously alternate the way that foiling is all done in different colors for each character onto different Fedrigoni papers. And it just created something very playful. And this wasn't a project that we did for any money. It was just a self-promotional thing for Boss and ourselves. But it was a lot of fun to do. And I think that's the thing for me in the studio, is having this combination of really big projects and really small projects. And then in the box itself, when you open it up, we designed the typography for the pencil itself, a little sort of sheet that comes and some postcards that came in. So it becomes this all sort of consuming little box of sort of delights. And then off the back of that, because we'd started that, designed the whole typeface based again on the same elements we'd used for the illustrations. So this completely illegible piece of typography that are just postcards that come out in the boxes themselves. So the next big project I want to talk about is Human Atlas. So this again is featured in I. This has been probably the most amazing project to be involved with an artist called Marcus Lyon. And he takes these very simple, bold portraits of people and interviews them about their life. And it's all about sort of a deep look about somebody's identity. So he interviews them about their life, about where they come from. So this was the first one that we did in, the recent one we did in Detroit. And then he does DNA tests on them, ancestral DNA, to find out where their sort of ancestors are from, talks to them about where they live in Detroit, talks to them about where they were born, and then it becomes a sort of mapping exercise. So they're called a Human Atlas. This book is about A3, it's 500 pages, you know, it's 2 years worth of work, I suppose, from start to finish. Has this handprint on the front. Is this really detailed sort of mapping exercise, so very intense sort of artwork and layout. It's all printed really beautifully by Boss. Each person has this sort of DNA slice, almost like a core, with all these different patterns on. It's a very involved project, but a beautiful thing to do, wonderful thing to do at the moment. I think given all the turmoil around the world, of doing a project that celebrates diversity in different places. So we did one in Brazil, we've done one in Germany, we've just done this one in Detroit, and we're working on potential ones in LA and Silicon Valley at the moment. It also comes with an app that you can scan the portraits and listen to them. So it's a really lovely way of, it's so powerful to look at this portrait and hear their voices speak to you about their lives. What that led to, again, as a small scale project, was national reconstruction. So we did this project with Marcus in Brazil, called Somos Brazil, and the identity for it was a Brazilian flag that we just reconfigured. And that led to this book, which we've just published ourselves, which is based on an exercise that I use at D&AD workshops, where you give people flags and they chop them up and make other things out of them. So these just give you a few examples. And so we've done a book of about 50 or so of these. And again, I like the idea that it's taking sort of national symbols and turning them into something much more playful and much more fun. And so this is a little flag book that's on printed on Bible paper. It includes anagrams and photographs of flags in roads and all sorts of things. King's Place, another big project, wonderful venue up in King's Cross, with this wonderful wave sort of facade next to the river. The idea of sound waves. So we built this thing called a sound wave machine for their identity. So you plug in any piece of music and it creates a logotype using those sound waves.
I'm a feminist.
And then we use that for the logotype. So basically anyone who performs there gets their own logotype. That was the sort of thinking. These are people's business cards with their logotypes, with their favorite tracks on the back. And so somebody like Laurie Anderson performs, we create a logotype for her. So, and just to finish, I've got 25 seconds. This is probably the most personal project I've done so far, about my dad's garage. And after he died, my mum asked me to go and tidy the garage up. And I took my daughter, Jessica, who's now a graphic designer, but was, I think, 14 at the time, over there. And as I was wandering over, I was saying to her that it's full of spiders, and it was somewhere I was always a bit scared of, even though it reminded me of my dad. And so we went over there just to sort of tidy up. And the first thing we found was this, which was a set of Allen keys, and obviously looked like a spider. So we forgot about tidying the garage and just started to photograph things in there that looked like other things. And it became this really lovely exercise to do with Jess, but also about my dad, my memories of being in the garage, making stuff with him. This is Zorro and his moustaches. These are some snakes, some tulips, question marks, quotation marks. And this became this little book, almost unintentionally, that Jess and I printed. And just to finish on a little quote, I very much love doing this as a job, if it's not really a job, and just this idea of work being a pleasure. So, and I think that's me done.
Okay, sound of applause in out in Zoom land. Thank you very much, Jim. That was a very disciplined presentation as well.
I did panic when I got to 2 minutes left, but I'm on my way.
It's interesting that you, as Simon points out in the article in I, that you seem very comfortable working with quite a big company, and also working with an in-house team where you go in and you set something up.
Yeah, well, I think it's that issue really that running a small studio with myself and one designer, if we do any of those bigger projects, we have to do work with in-house designers because they're going to actually implement it. And I think there's all this slight thing of people looking down on in-house departments a bit. And I think if you go in there and talk to them, you can actually get a much better job out of it for yourself as well as them. So I think it's a key point. So start right, it's a good case in point. We did some implementation, but most of it was done in-house and still is, you know. So
I've got my
have you?
my pencil case here. I promised Fenton and Boss that at every opportunity I would hold it up and say what a wonderful object it is, and it is a wonderful object. And I'm glad you described the postcards as incomprehensible, because I got that one first, and I really I think I got it upside down to start with, but when I got it the right way up, it didn't really make a lot of difference. I still couldn't quite read it, but it's a really beautifully made, beautifully considered object.
I can vouch for the fact that Simon does indeed use pencils and does indeed use this pencil box.
Excellent. I think you could use it perhaps as your headline font in the next issue. Perhaps.
It's possible, but it's not quite condensed enough for us, really.
I could do
if you could do lead condensed or something.
I'm going to start thinking about that now, and then you've got to use it for 102.
Perhaps, as they say, we can come back to you at the end of the programme to see the first sketches, Jim.
Yeah. It won't be any more legible. Perhaps I should stop there.
So, Annette, how are you doing there in Geneva?
Hello.
Welcome to Type Tuesday, Annette. It's very nice to have you,
Thank you.
with us virtually. And of course, the big profile in I-101 is by our mutual friend Jan Middendorp, who was one of the people who was able to get to your exhibition in Frankfurt when you had this fantastic exhibition in Frankfurt at a time when very few people could actually get there. But I gather there are going to be some rooms open in the future that we can actually go to. Is that still the case?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
I gather there is going to be a room.
Yes, half of it's a really big place. It's I'll show some images of that, half of the exhibition had to be put off. It was 1,200 square meters, and half of it is gone and half of it stays, but it's transformed into a like pop-up store with many images, and it transforms. It's just the last room stays until August as it was.
Great. Well, let's start your presentation without further ado. We're dying to see.
Thank you. I put in a lot of pictures, so maybe I might go a bit quick on some points. And first of all, I really want to thank Jan Middendorp for his patience and the visit in the atelier, all the discussions we had together, but also you both for the exchanges we had and all the work and the commitment you put into this spread. And I thank you really very much for that.
It's a pleasure.
So
please share your screen.
I share my screen. So this is my usual working place. It's in Paris on the Bastille, and I can't welcome you in my atelier right now because I'm teaching in Geneva and I'm sitting in a little hotel room. This explains the background of my video. The exhibition we were talking about is an exhibition in the Museum Angewandte Kunst in Frankfurt, which I had over the last year. It ran quite a long time, from July 21st to January 21, and then it was prolongated until May. Unfortunately, all this prolongation didn't led to a lot of openings due to COVID, as we know. So I'm happy to share some of the images here. And I tried to go quite quickly through the work because I could talk hours about it. The story is that the director of the museum, Matthias Wagner-Carr, who was also the curator together with Peter Siska, asked me to make an exhibition, or invited me to do this exhibition in this huge space of the museum. And the only assignment he gave to me was, I don't want to have a retrospective of your work, of the body of work. I want to have a graphic statement, which better invitation could one wish. So the question was, for the work that I normally create in a context in the French cultural scene and public space, how would that translate into a museum space in Germany where the people don't know the context necessarily, neither language? So I decided to transform my way of working and approaching the work in a space, in a physical space, and show all the different, or show some of the aspects that concern my work. And to transform the museum space in immersive graphic worlds that would be tangible experiences, sensual, poetic, and if possible, thought-provoking. The first thing was to interact with the architecture. Here is the entry hall of the Richard Meyer building, of this neo-modern architecture, and I contrasted it with organic elements and growth, also by dialoguing with these, sorry about my English, with these ways that go up. In the entry, when you go a little bit further up, and the end of the ascent, you can see this text which reads something like, I'm a part of the big picture, and the whole big picture is inside me. And that is pretty much my way of seeing life and the work. The black paths of these images go then through the whole exhibition and lead you through the different spaces and themes. The exhibition is titled Apropos, which means by the way or speaking of, but it also means the relevance of things. So I wanted to give the spectator viewpoints and associations that one creates while displacing oneself in the space, more like a game of ever new interrelationships between imagery, space, associations, and information. When you enter this exhibition, you see further images of nature and light, because this is a theme that goes through a lot of my work. And it's about layering, about putting together, tangible and intangible, the micro and the macro. It's in the same way the visual expression of the phrase we just read on the entry. Most of my work is poster work. I mean, I do also edition, publishing, identities and all that, but I mean, the poster work is really where my heart goes in. And posters are also the mirrors of their time, as we often say. And so in one of the first pieces here in the rooms, each room of the 4 rooms that I had available have a thematic. In here, you see on the right side hanging these posters that are a fragmented mirror image of the self, reflecting upon the context of different color worlds. So you could go through these different worlds where they were hanging in the space, and you could displace yourself around that. You see also this wall with the big words repetition written in oversized letters across the wall, a little bit ironic and true. This word sends us to an endless journey of the perpetual same and the cycle of life and creation itself. So behind this, you see on the other side, the windows that lead to the Frankfurt business and banking skyline on the other side of the Main River. And the idea was also to communicate from the inside to the outside space. You also see that there's a little smaller piece hanging, Work War, and that has exactly the same function to communicate between the architecture, the building, and the Frankfurt situation. If you go a little bit further down the road, you see this system error restart poster. And this is the end of a non-linear countdown wall that pulsates and gives a level of time arranged in layers that culminate in the system error. An endpoint of design condensed. So that asks if the system was hacked or not. You see here the countdown, the non-linear countdown line, and some extracts of smaller details of this room, of other point of views, because the idea was that the spectator, each point of view that he had would become like own image and own poster, and whatever angle you choose, there was some graphic elements that could be interesting. So when you leave the first room, you come into a second room who talks about another work that I work for a long time or has that as a subject. It's about a dance company. It's called The Phare, that means the lighthouse. And it is about the visual experiments between the physicality on the intersection between movement and light. It is about a dance company, and I do all their communication for it and try to translate what really matters to me in this work into the space, in the museum space. For example, I did the whole facade for this choreographic center with a permanent light installation that which takes place every evening, and it projects what is the inside into the outside, into the public space, so the dance, in a figurative or in an abstract way. In the museum, it is represented as an independent film and projected in layers, so to translate the idea of the projection into the space, into the public space. In, you know, the idea of the squares go around. This is the room. You can see other elements of the work. They're all about body, light, and movement, and the question that you can ask yourself about the body staged in space, but also the way that light and movement work in the communication. Here, it's in the real application in the city. And I show that because the detail is to me very important too. I work a lot with silk screen because I'm a real fan about, you know, the finishing of the work, the materiality of it. And so for this light, the light goes onto the smallest dots. And you can see it here in this small animation. It's by displacing yourself as a spectator that you changes the light on the type. And so the dancer is not in the poster, but the dancer is in front of the poster, the one who is the spectator. So the idea of the transposing of the body and light installation in the building continues here. And I also like to have hidden spaces in my work, but also in the installation. It's a little corner that nobody knew. You had to be really curious and go a little bit further to discover it. And so it revealed itself to you. This were, you know, like a composition of different images and images of some of the spectators who could be in the show and put photos of themselves in the internet. And again, other work put out of a theater context where I worked together with another designer for 10 years, Vincent Perrotet, where we developed together as two independent studios, but working together on projects, this work. And so both of us, we represented as our work, and this is an element of the Angoulême work. Yes, when you come to the second part, this is the one that's still there until August. You can see a lot of collection of posters. I have made 350 or more posters in my life. You can see some of them collected here in series because, you know, a lot of time I work in series, but also individuals, some brochures. I unfortunately have no time to go further into it, but you have an idea about the work. And so I try for each project to develop a strong identity, but to renew every year the way of approaching it. There's another little room on the side. You can see there's that was an invitation to a Swiss museum that gave me a carte blanche and freedom to do whatever I wanted. I made a carta terra incognita because these are the white spots on the earth that are still undiscovered and to be discovered, and the white sheet in all the colors. On the right side, you see some posters who were made first in French, La question, and I translated it in German for the exhibition. Das ist hier die Frage, which translates from Shakespeare, to be or not to be. This is the question, and it was a poster that was hanging in the city of Chaumont, which is the city with the design museum in France, where I worked for the theater, was called Relax, and the budget cuts were so drastic that they only could do one single poster for the whole year. And so I raised the question, and this poster was hanging all the year in public space in 3 different versions, only with the question, but also with the program, and raised a lot of political discussions. And this brings me to the last room, which is the Relax Room, which is the name of the theater we were just talking about. It was a former bowling bar turned into a theater, and we just took the type that we found on the construction site and we gave it life in many different forms and spaces, and used it in different way. You can see on the background is that it's made with these little dots like a tube, or here in this room as an installation, it's a multiplication of identity. And the idea was that this identity is also asking what is an identity for a cultural institution now? Must it be a static corporate chart, or can it be something like a floating identity? Is art and culture, should it be seen as a relaxing diversion, or should it serve to better understand a complicated world and become self-determined participants with a cultural discourse? I'm sorry for my English, and that is the end.
Thank you very much.
Annette, thank you very much. It's an amazing body of work. And, you know, we tried to do the best we can to put it on basically a 4-color printed page, but you use such an amazing range of special colors and special techniques. I think, I mean, it'd be wonderful that we could get some of this work maybe on show in the UK. I think the way you've given a different identity to each of these cultural institutions is, you know, is really fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry that it was a bit quick and I could not go very much in depth of the project.
We can.
Yeah, it was very relaxed.
We can do some things later on at the end. Okay. Thanks very much. Okay, so
time for Mario.
We're going to go now to Barcelona and Mario Eskenazi, and we're also welcoming Montserrat, who works with us and may help us a little along the way with some translations. I love Barcelona, and for a long time I'd go and I'd see work for Bank Sabadell or the various identities on the kind of public utility vehicles, and then I sort of discovered that it was all the work of one man, so we're very pleased to welcome Mario, and you're going to talk us through some of the projects. Some we've got in the magazine, some are things we didn't have space to cover, I think, Mario.
Okay, thank you, Simon. I don't know if I can speak in English or in Spanish.
If you're comfortable speaking in Spanish and showing us some things, and then I think Montserrat's standing by to do an amazing act of instant translation.
Better because I'm a little nervous and I prefer to think in what I'm saying and not in how I'm saying this. ¿Empezamos?
Vale.
Well,
I think you're at the end of your presentation.
Yeah.
That's okay. We can see it all backwards first, and then here we go.
Very nice. Thanks, Mario. I'll turn my mic off.
Bueno, lo que voy a compartir ahora no es el trabajo en sí, sino algo que no hago por lo general. Digamos, una de las primeras cosas que aprendí en este trabajo allí por los 70, era que lo que hiciera tenía que ser claro e inteligible. Que yo no...
Okay, I start. He says that what I'm going to share here is not my usual work, because what I learned when I started with this job in 1970s. Puedes continuar.
Aprendí que el trabajo tenía que ser entendible.
I've learned that my job must be understood by everyone.
Que yo no iba a estar al lado de cada trabajo explicándole a la gente qué había querido hacer.
I couldn't be next to all the people explaining what I was trying to do.
Digamos, todo lo que yo hago tiene una razón.
Everything I do has a reason.
Son como principios fundamentales para mí que siempre haya un porqué y que cada trabajo, además, que para mí es lo más importante, sea únicamente para lo que estoy haciendo.
I have some very strong design principles, and I have reasons to do this job.
Porque yo le llamo ad hoc, o sea,
I call this principle ad hoc.
Que no vale cambiar las letras y sirva para otro trabajo. Tiene que ser solo para lo que lo he hecho.
What I'm working in has to be useful for what I'm working in this particular project. It can be used for another project.
Y por eso trato de encontrar en cada cosa, en cada tema que toco, algo que lo haga único y que yo pueda mostrar eso que es único en ese trabajo y que es solo de él.
I always try to find something unique in each project and something that can be replaced.
Por eso empiezo con mi identidad.
That's why I'm started with my identity.
Cuando recibía cartas, ahora mail, mi nombre está escrito de cualquier manera y usé ese problema como base de mi identidad.
Usually when I receive emails or letters a few years ago, my name was always wrong. They wrote my name wrong. So I used that problem as a way to think about this new project.
Ahora empezaré con la presentación y hago una aclaración que tiene que ver también con mis principios gráficos. Mostraré trabajos de los últimos 20 años.
I will show projects from the last 20 years.
Comentaré de dónde sale cada idea, espero que se vea, pero bueno, como no lo comento a la gente, entre colegas me parece fácil comentarlo.
Okay, I will
Sí,
continue. I will tell about my ideas to the colleagues.
Y otra cosa que también me preocupa es que el trabajo no muera rápido, que dure en el tiempo. O sea,
I want
siempre,
my job to be timeless. I don't want it to be dead in a short time.
Y empezamos. Este es un libro que editó Paidós. Paidós es una editorial con la que trabajé durante más de 20 años, que editó Paidós por el aniversario del nacimiento de Erich Fromm. Y es El arte de amar.
I work in this book project for Editorial Paidós. I work with Paidós for more than 20 years, and the name of the book is, can you repeat the name, sorry?
El arte de amar.
The book is named El arte de amar.
The Art of Love.
Of love.
La base de esto fue que en castellano el arte de amar tiene 2 A.
In Spanish, El arte de amar has 2 A.
Entonces cogí la A como símbolo de arte y de amar.
So I chose the A as a symbol of art and love, amar in Spanish.
Y por eso todas las A de los títulos importantes van en rojo.
And that's why all the A's of the principal titles are in red.
Y por eso el color del libro es rojo también,
And that's why the book is red too,
color del amor.
the color of love.
Esta es una colección que hice sobre el 2000, también para Editorial Paidós, y el título de la colección, el nombre de la colección es Paidós Asterisco.
This is a collection that I designed for Paidós 2, and the name of the collection is Paidós Asterisco.
Entonces, la idea fue hacer todas las portadas con distintas tipografías y separando el autor y el título con asteriscos correspondientes a la tipografía que uso.
I used different characters and to use every name of the author to separate and to I used different fonts, and I separate the name of the title and the name of the author using asterisks.
Estos trabajos, los tres que veremos ahora,
The three next projects
son para una editorial argentina, Editorial Argonauta, que edita libros clásicos.
were themed for an Argentinian editorial called Editorial Argonauta that usually edits classic books.
Y siempre con el menor presupuesto, y lo que he tratado en todos estos es ser clásico pero actual.
What I tried in this project is to be classic, but actual.
Para cambiar así de golpe, yo tengo una relación muy buena con mis clientes que se hacen duraderas y duraderas y duraderas.
I usually have a very good relationships with my clients that usually last a lot of years.
Para DAM es la principal cervecera de First Brewery in Barcelona.
DAM is one of the most important brewers in Barcelona.
Y para ellos diseño desde etiquetas hasta les he diseñado la identidad corporativa.
For them,
Yeah.
I designed different things for them, since the identity to some personal etiquettes.
And wayfinding, etcétera, etcétera. Pero cuando diseño una etiqueta, o sea, una marca de cerveza, también me piden que me haga cargo de la comunicación.
When I design a label, I also have to design. I have also to work in the communication.
Y esto aquí tenemos la etiqueta de una cerveza basada en sabores mexicanos, hecha aquí.
This is a label inspired in Mexican flavors.
Y ahí vemos el sistema de comunicación que generé.
And next to it, we can see the communication that he designed.
Este es otro tipo, cuando son clientes tan grandes, se me hace muy diverso el trabajo, cosa que me gusta.
When I have like very big clients, my job gets more diverse, which I really enjoy.
Cuando empecé a diseñar, mi sueño era solo hacer portadas de libros.
When I started to design, my dream was only to design book covers.
Pero con el tiempo me fui dando cuenta que me gusta todo. Digo, todo es todo, desde el packaging hasta la identidad, pasando por editorial y señalización.
But during all these years, I realized that I like to do everything, from identities to book covers to labels, etc.
Pues, no sé, este fue un encargo que me divirtió mucho, que era identificar los vasos de papel que hace DAM para los bares o para las fiestas.
I really enjoyed this project. I had to work on the design for Van and for the glasses they made for different parties.
Y obviamente la idea es un papel plegado, escribir papel como si estuviera plegado.
And the idea was to write papel, papel that is paper in Spanish, as it was creased.
Otro cliente que tengo desde hace más de 26 años es el Banco Sabadell.
Bank Sabadell is one client that I've been working with for more than 26 years.
Y no hace falta que me pidan, sino que les puedo proponer cosas y que las llevo a cabo también.
I can suggest them some projects and do them.
Durante los últimos 26 años he estado haciendo todos los annual reports, o sea, cada año he hecho el annual report del banco.
During the last 26 years, I made every year annual report of the bank.
Y hace un par de años, 3, 4 años, se nos ocurrió que por qué no diseñar unos números especiales basados en los gráficos que van dentro de los annual reports que nos servirían para diseñar el annual report en sí.
A few years ago, I came up with the idea that why don't we design some numbers inspired in the graphics that were on the different reports, sorry.
A estos números los usamos tanto en los proyectos editoriales del banco como el annual report y también para las felicitaciones de cada año, para el 2020, 2021.
We use these numbers for different designs and reports, and also for different Christmas cards.
Este es el último annual report que hemos hecho, el del año pasado.
This is the last annual report that we designed, the of 2020.
Y como ves, los números son importantes en el annual report.
Numbers are really important in the annual report.
Y esto son son las nuevas oficinas del banco, flagships les llaman.
These are the new offices of the bank.
Que me pidieron un sistema para una semitransparencia en determinados despachos. Que se viera la gente trabajando, pero que no se viera el detalle.
I was asked to design something that you can see people working, but at the same time to give privacy.
Y la idea fue, sigo con los números, o sea, un banco me lleva números, obviamente.
The idea was to continue working with the concept of numbers, because in a bank you work with numbers.
Y decidí poner el número, o sea, hacer el filtro con los números de cada despacho.
I decided to put each number to each office.
Este es un proyecto que hice en el 98, más o menos.
This is a project that I worked in 1988.
Este lo hice en colaboración con Diego Feijó, un gran diseñador de aquí.
I did it in collaboration with Diego Feijó, a very famous designer here.
Y vale la pena que lo explique. era para la Fundación Lilian Thuram.
This project was made for Fundación Lilian Duran.
Lilian Thuram era un futbolista francés que, nacido en las Guayanas, era
Lilian Duran was a French football player who was born in Las Guayanas.
Que cuando su familia emigró a Francia, sufrió racismo desde chiquito.
When his family emigrated to France, he suffered from racism.
Luego vino a jugar al Barcelona, se retiró en el Barça.
Then he came to Spain and to play in Barcelona Football Club, and he retired from that club.
Y ahí, antes de retirarse, decidió montar la fundación Lilian Thuram contra el racismo.
Before retiring from football, he decided to create this foundation against racism.
Su teoría, digamos, su claim era que no hay 5 razas como nos habían enseñado, negros, blancos, asiáticos, indios americanos y neozelandeses, sino que él decía que hay una sola raza y es la raza humana.
He claims that we don't have different types of races, that we as a human are just have one race, that is human race.
La idea, en este panel está la idea y el desarrollo de la identidad de ellos. Si ves la primera parte, los textos, son nombres de diferentes lugares del mundo.
Here you can see the identity of the foundation. In the first part, you can see the names of the places.
Abajo tenemos la silueta. Esto yo lo digo porque también en algún sentido he sentido el racismo y he sentido la xenofobia. O sea, yo me identifico mucho con este proyecto. Y como no sé, y también siempre me ha preocupado los problemas de machismo y feminismo.
Below you can see the silhouettes. I feel very represented with this work because I felt racism too. And I'm also worried about feminism.
Y pienso que lo que somos cada uno de nosotros es una casualidad. O sea, sí.
No, continúe.
Bueno, pienso que lo que somos cada uno de nosotros es una casualidad, porque cada uno de nosotros podría haber nacido aquí, en China, en Bruselas, y cada uno de nosotros podría haber tenido un nombre de esos.
I think that we all as human beings are just a type of casualty because we could be born in different places.
Y no sé, te lo digo, en mi caso, por ejemplo, mi padre era turco y mi madre era hija de centroeuropeos, ruso y rumano.
My dad was from Turkish and my mom was daughter from Russian immigrants.
Ya. Nací en Argentina.
I was born in Argentina.
Vivo en España.
I live in Spain.
Tengo una hija con una francesa y otra hija con una catalana.
I have a daughter with a French woman and another daughter with a Catalan woman.
O sea que ya ves que vivo la casualidad en mí.
I live this casualty in me.
Bueno, cualquiera, como decía, cualquiera puede tener un nombre de esos y cualquiera podría tener una silueta de esas.
Everyone can have a name from the list and everyone can have one of those silhouettes.
Y cada silueta podría tener esos nombres.
And each silhouette can have one of those names.
Y a su vez, cada silueta podría haber sido de un diferente color.
And every silhouette could be from a different color.
Y el resultado de la identidad es este.
And the result of the identity is this.
Y en ese póster, el lema de abajo, que es el lema de la fundación también, es todos parientes, todos diferentes.
The logo of the foundation is todos parientes, todos diferentes.
All relative, all different. Bueno, esto que voy a explicar ahora es una exposición de los hermanos Roca.
This next version is about an exhibition of Roca's brothers.
Que los Roca Brothers son tres.
Those Roca brothers are three.
Son de los chefs más famosos del mundo. Varias veces han sido el número uno en estas cuestiones de cocina.
They are one of the most famous chefs in the world.
Y ya te dije, son tres y los tres se llama uno Jordi, otro Josep y otro Joan. Los tres empiezan con J, o sea que hay doble triplicidad.
One of them is named Jordan, the other is Joseph, and the next one is
Joan.
Joan, and the three of them have a J in their names.
Uno de ellos es chef.
One of them is chef.
El otro se dedica a los postres.
The other works with pastry.
Y el otro es sommelier.
And the next brother is sommelier.
Y entre los tres forman los Roca Brothers.
And the three of them are the Roca brothers.
Para lo cual le generé una tipografía repetida en tres. Está formada por la misma que se repite 3 veces.
I designed a typography that is always repeated 3 times.
Y con eso nos sirvió para la identidad tanto de la exposición como el catálogo.
I work with that concept for the catalog and for the identity of the exhibition.
Esto es la exhibition. And these are the catalogs. Muestro esto porque también me gusta hacer cosas, digamos, más frívolas.
I show this because I also like to do more. I also like to do things that are frivolous.
Ya. Yo tengo una casa en Cadaqués.
I own a house in Cadaqués.
Cadaqués es un pueblo cerca de la frontera con Francia, en la costa, al norte.
Cadaqués is a small beach town near France in the north of Spain.
Y me gusta mucho hacer cosas allí, para el pueblo.
And I really like to do different things for the people in the town.
He hecho la identidad de una bodega, de una galería de arte, de tiendas.
I worked on the identity of an art gallery, of a winery, of different shop stores.
Y esto es la identidad del bar central de Cadaqués, el bar que está en cuanto llegas al pueblo, que es como el lugar de reunión.
This is the identity of one of the most important bars in Cadaqués, like the meeting place, the meeting point once you arrive there.
Y la identidad sale de un rótulo de madera viejo, porque ya tiene años este bar, que está afuera, en una barandilla, tiene un cartel que dice Maritime Bar, escrito con esas letras.
The identity was inspired in an old label that was in the bar, and that was written with that typography.
Entonces, basándome en las letras de Maritime Bar, diseñamos la familia y con eso hacemos la identidad del Maritime Bar. Cuando Maritime va entre barras es la bold y como verás en la tarjeta la otra es la regular.
I inspired in the font and in the in the font, I designed one that is round and the one that is more straight.
Y siguiendo con estas frivolidades, este era el lobby del Hotel Homme, que era el primer hotel boutique de Barcelona.
I also designed the identity of the Hotel Homme, that it was the first boutique hotel in Barcelona.
Y me doy el gusto de ver qué pasaba escribiendo lobby, usando todo el catálogo. Este es el menú, una carta de ellos.
This is the menu of the restaurant, of the hotel.
Y que cuando lo abres, lees el lobby entero.
When you open it, you can read lobby.
Volviendo a mis clientes grandes, esto es...
Returning to my big clients.
Esto es uno de los parkings de DAM, de Barcelona Brewery.
This is one of the parkings of DAM, the one of the most famous brewery in Barcelona.
Y la idea fue poner los números ocupando el lugar que ocupa el coche. O sea, cada uno no se iba a olvidar dónde dejaba el coche.
I designed a specific numbers, so I put them in different places so everyone knows where to park their car and they don't forget.
Y esto es una parte de una señalización también para DAM.
This is
Part of the wayfinding system for the brewery tour. They do a brewery tour in the factory, and they asked me the wayfinding system.
It's a brewery tour, is that right?
And all the system is based in graphics, because they explain how many bottles produce, how many time they go, los coches, the vehicles go to the bars, completely graphics. And this is the end of the tour, with a round table explaining what happened in this factory, this brewery. This was another important project for me because it's an art center. I always wanted to do something for the culture. I sigo en castellano.
Okay.
Siempre me gustó hacer algo para la cultura. Me daba como más libertad en el sentido que podía explorar cosas que no fueran que no es tanto en el consumo masivo.
I always like to work for culture. I feel free when I work for it.
The identity is based in the RAM, because this art center, is in the Ramblas, the main promenade in Barcelona. And the building is an old convent, but has a ramp in the facade. And taking the sloping of the ramp, we designed the Santa Monica. And after half the Santa Monica, we said, why not to do every title in this way? And we designed an app where you can write and choose the different sizes. This was designed with another great designer from Barcelona, Dani Rubio. And this is the last. This is an exhibition for the work of Starevich, Spangmayer, and the Quay brothers. And the name of the exhibition is Metamorphosis, because they work with animals, people, death, and the logotype was made with this typography. And this is the exhibition. And
thank you very much, Mario.
And Montserrat.
And thank you, Montserrat. That was a great piece of
Amazing.
Instant translation.
Amazing double act.
Yeah.
Sorry for my mistakes.
No.
gracias, Monse. Fuiste de gran ayuda. Por lo menos estaba menos nervioso que de costumbre.
Gracias.
That was terrific. We really appreciate it. And of course, we have Elizabeth waiting in the wings right now. And Elizabeth, thank you. Can we call you Flacco, Mario? It's the word we learned from our interview. Hi, Elizabeth. I'm sorry that took a little longer, but thank you for your patience, and thank you again to Montserrat and to Mario. And we'll see everyone back in a little while. The article in I-101 by Elizabeth is one of what's turning out to be a really compelling series of articles on important women graphic designers in American history, and well, in fact, in international graphic design history. Elizabeth wrote a piece about Thérèse Moll in I-98, and in the latest issue, she profiles Jacqueline Casey. So please share your screen as soon as you're ready, Elizabeth.
Will do. Whoops, how did that happen? Try that again.
You can edit that later.
That was left over. Uh-oh. Okay, hang on a sec.
Back to slide one.
Yeah, well. Okay. Can you see that? No. Hang on. All right, we have to start again. Sorry.
No problem.
That's what happens when you practice and you don't fix it again. All right.
We're getting some nice questions in, by the way, so thank you very much. And please do, if there are any more questions you have in the panel. Thank you, Elizabeth. We can see your, that's right,
Okay.
we can see your full screen.
Perfect, Elizabeth.
Fantastic.
That's great.
I'm ready to go. So, of course, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about Jackie Casey. In my presentation today, I will share with you Jacqueline Casey's early work at art school and when she joined the MIT Office of Publications in 1955. In September of 1945, Casey enrolled at the Massachusetts College of Art, a state-funded art college in Boston, now known as the Massachusetts College of Art and Design. She majored in fashion illustration, fashion design, and intending to work professionally after graduation. Here are two of her life drawings from 1949 when she was a fourth-year student. Here are also three fashion illustrations and possibly designs as well, published in the Mass Art yearbooks, one in 1948 when she was a third-year student, which would have been an honor, and the second in 1949 when she was graduating. To help pay for expenses, Jackie worked as a bookkeeper at Art School Associates, the Mass Arts art supply store, alongside fellow student Muriel Cooper, who was then majoring in commercial art. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, known as MIT, established its Office of Publications in 1951. Its first director, John Mattill, was tasked with the planning of all official institute publications. Mattill was a writer and an editor, not a designer. So he asked his MIT colleague, Gorky Kepish, for advice on who to hire as a staff designer. Kepish knew of Muriel Cooper, who he worked with at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston. With her hiring in 1953, MIT became one of the very first American universities to centralize its publications and employ a full-time in-house designer. Muriel Cooper created diverse printed matter for MIT, including the square bifold pamphlets needed to promote the 30 to 40 summer session courses offered on campus each year. Each one was a design project that sought to communicate the technical content of MIT's summer courses. Utilizing photography and photo montage, as you can see by these examples from 1954 and 1955, Cooper discovered abstract patterns in these technical images, in essence, uniting art and science through visual form. As the workload in the office grew, Mathilde hired Cooper's former classmate and friend, Jacqueline Shepard, in 1955. Jackie Shepard married Bill Casey in 1958 and took his surname. By this time, Jackie had worked as a fashion illustrator, as a production manager for a fashion daily, and as an interior decorator. Of that time, Casey confessed, and I quote, "I was strong in drawing, and I needed something more challenging and intellectual, even though I loved fashion and clothes. It was not the kind of life I was interested in," end quote. Here we can see an example of Muriel Cooper's 1956 catalog covers and Jacqueline Casey's first covers. And you could see she was quite a fast learner. Casey recalls, and I quote, "I had always known Muriel and admired her. She offered me a job. Although I had never studied graphic design, I wanted to know how to do something, so I accepted her offer. I just stayed on and on and on," end quote. Here are covers from 1957. On the left, Muriel Cooper, well, Muriel's on the left, and Jackie's on the right. Jackie was learning very quickly to work, as you could see, with type and image. In 1957, Cooper left the office to begin a Fulbright Fellowship in Milan. In her absence, Ralph Coburn was hired. Coburn had studied architecture at MIT before leaving to pursue painting full-time. Ralph's geometric abstract style was a good fit for the office. Here are examples from 1958. Jackie's are on the left and Ralph's are on the right. In 1958, Mathilde initiated a visiting program for European designers. Designers would arrive in early January to handle the crush of creating summer session materials, and in the process, the MIT staff would learn by working alongside them. In 1959, Thérèse Moll, a young Swiss designer, was the critical visitor. She introduced the office to European typography and the design of modular systems. Moll had impeccable Swiss training. She attended the Basel School of Design from 1949 to 1954, where she studied with Armin Hoffman and Emil Ruder. After graduation, she worked in Carl Gerstner's studio, or atelier as he called it, from 1955 to 1957, and in the design department at Geigy Pharmaceuticals in 1958, before leaving for MIT early in 1959. So this is what her work looked like before she arrives. The brochures, or summer session catalogs, I should say, that Moll produced during her time at MIT are disciplined yet dynamic, and they follow a clear internal system. Moll used Futura Extra Bold instead of Accidents Grotesque, which was not available in Boston at that time. In essence, demonstrating that Swiss design was less about a particular typeface and more about a design methodology. Thérèse Moll is credited for introducing her American design colleagues to modular typographic systems and ragged right configuration, which was not widely practiced in the US at that time. Her influence was immediate, as you could see in these examples, On the left, we have Jackie Casey working alongside Thérèse Moll. And on the right, you see Ralph Coburn working alongside Thérèse Moll, and the inspiration that they took from her. The direction of design at MIT developed considerably after Moll's brief visit, as evidenced by these summer session catalog covers. On the left, again, Jackie Casey, and on the right, Ralph Coburn, a year later in 1960. So if you look really closely, it's such a leap. Jacqueline Casey worked at MIT from 1955 until her retirement in 1989. What became known, over these 30 years, what became known as the recognizable look of MIT communications can be categorized, at least in part, by the use of sans serif typefaces, grid systems for organizing content, asymmetric layouts, and the ample use of white space as a compositional element. Casey's work is synonymous with what later became known as the MIT style. Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you very much. That was fantastic. And you tantalizingly tell the story that happens just before the amazing work by Jacqueline Casey that we show in the issue. But as you say, there's that critical moment where you can see the Swiss influence, the Thérèse Moll influence in terms of grids and approaches that really began that whole direction at MIT. So thank you very much. It's great.
The origin story.
Yeah.
Guess, isn't it? Yeah. It's now time for I'm afraid, rather short panel with all our guests. So please do turn on your microphones and your cameras. And we have a great question. I think we may only have time for one question because it's a really good one from Mark Node, which I'd start with Jem actually, but I think everyone will have something interesting to say. Mark said, all the speakers have talked about frequent or long-term collaborations. What are your thoughts on the importance of building trusting relationships with collaborators, such as clients and also other practitioners, and how does that affect your work? So Jem, would you like to kick off?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think perhaps you don't realise it at the time, but you look back, and I look at something like the Human Atlas Project. You know, I've known Marcus for, I don't know, 20 years, and that relationship's only really blossomed in perhaps the last 4 or 5. But it's definitely very much, you know, that Milton Glaser thing about you do the best work for the people that you like,
yeah,
and the people you get on with, and I think that's, you know, it's absolutely true. And as I say, I'm not sure you realize it at the time, but when you look back and you suddenly realize how many projects you've done for people that you liked and that they come back throughout your life. I mean, obviously, you know, I've been working quite a long time now, but you feel like there's going to be people that I've worked for now that I'm going to be working for in 20 years or so, unless they're sick of me, potentially.
Annette, what are your thoughts about that? You've had long-term, very long-term.
I have very long-term working relationships, and I think, you know, like the best work really develops in mutual trust when there's a real trust and partnership between, you know, the commissioner and me. And I don't see myself as a, you know, I don't see them as a client. Of course, in the beginning it's a client, but it very quickly becomes either a partner in crime, or I don't think it is going to be very long-term. But mostly it worked out really very well.
I think, Annette, isn't there one theatre director who you've sort of followed through at least 3 different cultural institutions?
Yes, this is started in Rungis, it's on the suburbs of Paris. It was still in the last century. And then, you know, over the years it developed, he grew, and he became bigger, had bigger scenes, national scenes and all that. And so he, you know, took me with him into the other theaters and also created this collaboration. with another designer, Vincent Perrotet, who worked with him before. But this is a long story, but it's written in the story of the Eye magazine.
Yes.
And so teaser. And yeah, that is very interesting. Or for example, the collaboration with the director of Le Phare, who was also a very interesting encounter. So it was not a pitch or something like that, which I mostly refuse. And I saw now that it's not going to last very long anymore, this kind of project for designers. I mean, this attitude, but they came into these were two director women. They came into the atelier and they just stayed there the whole afternoon. We looked at work, we discussed about our way of seeing things. And then I knew they went to see other designers. And after a week, they called me and said, we want to work with you. And this is a kind of approach. Then I also can take risks in the beginning. And, you know, when they take risks or when there's a real commitment, then I feel the same way too.
Mario, you're the king of long-term client relationships. Do you see some of the people you work for as clients, or do you actually see them as friends? You know,
some clients used to say to me, Mario, it's very easy to work with you. I think I know to explain what I do. I know recognize my mistakes when I do mistakes. And I don't know, I believe in them and then they believe in me. And from time to time, we used to go to have dinner, lunch.
Just from time to time.
It's true. This work is part of our life. We live with
exactly.
it. Then if I have to work with people, I try that the people be good people. I don't know. I see in the first meeting if I can work with one of them or not. In the first meeting, you see that this will be complicated. And then I ask a lot of money, then I don't have
It's interesting as well how friendship seems to be another little theme that runs through this issue. You know, friendship between people on our team and with our writers and the designers we feature. And of course, Elizabeth, in your article, it's very clear that the friendship between Muriel Cooper and Jacqueline Casey was a crucial catalyst to that work.
Catalan are not very friendships. But I don't know, maybe I had a designer working with me and he used to say to me, Mario, is that your voice when you talk with them by phone with this accent? It sounds sweet, and then they came engaged with you. I suppose that I am, I don't know, cool. And
I think we've certainly seen the 3-cigarette husky voice charm this evening.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, sorry, you were going to talk about Muriel Cooper and Jackie Casey, because in fact, did they apart after they started working together at MIT, they never worked anywhere else, did they?
Well, for Jackie Casey, when she started in 1955, she really found a home. It well suited her, and she pretty much stayed in the same position throughout her career. She starts as a staff designer at the Office of Publications, and then Muriel goes off. Muriel is a gadfly. She does stay at MIT, but she flits around MIT, and then of course becomes a tenured faculty member, which was really important. But Jackie was a different kind of personality. She really liked to just stay in one position and just get the lay of the land. And so I think it was in 1972, John Mathill goes off and edits the Tech News, and she becomes the director and and they changed the name to Design Services, and she remains the lead in Design Services until she does retire in 1989. And Muriel is still at MIT. They still have lunch together, but Muriel hops to the MIT Press, then she hops to the Visual Language Workshop, then she becomes a tenured faculty member, and then she's at the media. She finds the Media Lab with Nicholas Negroponte. So,
and the rest is history, of course. I mean, that was a very crucial nexus of design innovation.
And they lived next door to one another. They were each other's family. So yeah.
I'm afraid the clock is ticking, and I think that may be all the. I think that's all the.
Yeah, I think so.
We have,
I think also all those tantalizing pictures of beer bottles are getting to us, and so I think well, we hope. Thank you again to everybody. I think it's been a fascinating Type Tuesday.
I'd like to pay one final tribute actually to our great friend and collaborator Sarah Snaith, who wrote the interview with Mario just before she sadly died last August, and so this issue is also a tribute to her, and we're so glad that Sarah brought that piece into I as her first interview in the Spanish language, in fact, and that's how we came to meet Montserrat. And very special thank you to Montserrat for playing such an important role tonight. Thank you. All the way from, well, I guess it's winter in Buenos Aires, isn't it, for you?
Oh, thank you.
Annette, thank you for beaming in from outer space or Geneva or wherever. Thank you, Jim, from your standing up desk. There's so much more to say, and if we were going to the bar, we'd kind of say it, but we'll have to sadly do that. Mario, thank you. Elizabeth, thank you. And also a big thank you to behind the scenes, Holly Catford, who has been sharing our screens, and also to Janet South, who's
battled with Eventbrite and the collapse of the internet through the match just today.
Yes, so Janet is the person who makes sure this all works. We're a bit slow, but we are eventually hoping to put these Zoom Type Tuesdays online on our Vimeo channel. So please sign up to the newsletter and we'll keep you informed about that.
We're also going to be offering a special course in Spanish graphic design with Mario and Montserrat as a double act.
People might take you seriously.
Well, if there's a demand, Oh no, we've got another magazine to make, haven't we? Okay. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody who came along and asked questions and made comments. And
don't forget to sign up to the newsletter, subscribe to I, or if you only want to buy a single issue, you can buy single issues through the iShop, and Janet's already sent the links in the chat. And we'll do another Type Tuesday in September. Not quite sure whether it'll be Zoom or real life, or maybe a mix of both. And we'll have a new type issue, I-102, out in September as well. And thank you. We just made a commitment live on Zoom.
Okay.
And yes, thank you very much, everyone who attended. Thank you for all your wonderful retweets and Instagram stories about tonight, which has helped publicize it. And I think we just have to say good night and go to the bar.
Yeah, good night. Thank you.
Good night.